Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be going over understanding land trusts for real estate. So first off, my goal here is to empower investors with knowledge and useful strategies. And so today we're going to unravel a concept that might just be a game changer that you need in your real estate investing, and it's called a land trust. So stay tuned as I break down what a land trust is, how it can be a significant part of your asset protection plan, and compare it to an LLC. Now, let's dive into what is a land trust, and we'll break it down kind of this way. So first off, a land trust really is a simple yet effective tool for real estate investors wishing to maintain anonymity. And what you really want is privacy concerning your property ownership. Now, a lot of times people think of asset protection, they immediately go to the stalwart. They hear about these LLCs and these different entities that you can file with a state and all that protection. But I'm going to break it back, move it back a little bit and say the best tool for protection is anonymity. If people don't know what you have, they don't generally try to take it away. And if you have a liability, they don't see you attached to the property. And if they do see you attached to the property, let's say that there's a liability occurrence and they sue, they still can't see what you have. And I've seen this work over and over again, over 27 years, where people are able to avoid getting involved in protracted litigation or litigation at all simply by keeping their affairs private. In other words, they're not advertising to everybody, I have a whole bunch of assets. So at its core, what a land trust is really doing is getting your name off of a property. And what we're doing is we're transferring title of the property, and I'll explain this in a second, into the name of a trustee as opposed to sitting in your name. And you're going to say, wait a second, who's this wily trustee trying to take over my stuff? And I'll explain how we create anonymity, and I'll show you how it will work with asset protection at the same time. But let's go over this real quick. Let's just say that we have John and Sally, and they own, we'll just call them John and Sally Smith, and they own 123 Main Street. And it's a cute little house. I'm just going to make a house over here. And you're looking at title. Title. And what's on title? And it will be John Smith, Sally Smith, joint tenants with, usually you'll have something like with rights of, with joint tenants with rights of survivorship. Depends on your state, but sometimes they'll just do WROS, and they're just going to say, hey, joint tenancy with right of survivorship, or sometimes they'll say just joint tenancies. But the point is that John Smith and Sally Smith have their name featured on there. What a land trust does is creates kind of a triangle around it, and it's breaking the ownership down into pieces. So we have a trustee who's on title, and they manage that property for the benefit of a beneficiary or beneficiaries. In the case of John and Sally, they would be the beneficiaries. And John and Sally gave the property, which makes them a grantor. But this is not on it. There's no public record of these guys. The only thing that's on the public record is that trustee. So who should we make a trustee? Well, we could do it like this. I'll show you how title would work. We could use an attorney, for example. So you could say, hey, instead of my name being on there, again, we have 123 Main Street. We might set up the 123 Main Street Trust. And all we're doing on this is we're putting together a trust agreement. It's just a written document. It lives in your file cabinet. It's not filed with any state. And now when we put title on there, it'll be 123 Main Street Trust. And you don't like, I use the title of the address of the property on my land trust. Some people use names. So this could be the or this could be the Smelly Feet Trust. It doesn't have to be filed with any Secretary of State. We don't care. It could be the Mickey Mouse Trust for all I care. But at the end of the day, it's not your name on it. And whatever we call it, we're going to have to denote a trustee. So the 123 Main Street Trust, Joe Smith, trustee. Let's just say that we use Attorney Joe Smith or John Smith or whatever you want to put in there, or Sally Smith. It doesn't really matter. But we wouldn't use Sally. Let's take away the Smith and we'll go Joe Jones. There we go. Because we don't want a relative doing it necessarily. We want Joe to be independent. So there we have trustee. So Joe Jones as an attorney. You can even put Esquire on his name if he feels like it. Trustee. But what you're doing is you're getting your name off and you're putting and directing it towards somebody else. For example, at Anderson, my partner's son right now is putting his name on a lot of land trusts for people to run interference so that when they get solicited or people contact about the property, or if you have an angry tenant or something, they're going to the attorney instead of to you. It's keeping it off of your back and nobody knows that you're associated with the property. If you're not comfortable with that, then it could be, let's just say we set up an LLC to do it. So we have the ABC LLC as trustee. Maybe we use a state like Wyoming where there's anonymous ownership, so nobody can see it anyway. Now, what did we just magically do? John and Sally Smith are still the beneficiaries of that trust, but I'm going to put them over here so that we're not just Xing them out, but we'll just put John and Sally Smith, but nobody sees them. Nobody sees them in the public record. All we see on title is this. And let's go all the way back. When the Sears Tower was built in Illinois, they called these Illinois-style land trusts. And the reason being is because of this exact situation. There's actually a court case on it. Trustee is the name that's listed, and again, you could swap it out, not necessarily have to even update it. It could be a person, it could be an entity, it could be another trust. But the point is that title is held in the name of the trustee instead of in the name of anybody else. So when they were doing the Sears Tower, they were trying to accumulate land, for example, and they didn't want everybody to know that they were trying to buy up the land so they could build a building, because they would have jacked the price up. The last person with that last parcel would have really held out and could have really held up the project and prevented it from even being built unless somebody paid them an exorbitant amount of money, right? So in order to get around that, they set up land trusts and started buying up the properties, and nobody could see it's the same owner. All they knew is that, hey, there's brisk real estate sales in this area. And at the end of the day, they did the same thing for Disney World down in Florida. They were accumulating the property because they didn't want to let the world know what they were doing because there would have been market forces that tried to extort some money out of them, or hold out and cost them a lot more. So they were going up, and in both cases, they were accumulating the property that they needed for their project and doing it without raising a bunch of public spectacle, because that would have been negative. As soon as I know that my neighbors all sold to the same group and I'm the one that can keep them from building their project, my house just got way more valuable, right? So if they want to prevent that from happening, they don't want me to know that they own my neighbors, right? So they would own it in these land trusts. And it worked like a charm. Gets your name off. And that way, even though the property is now owned by the trustee, but the rights to all the money, the rights to occupy, the rights to receive rents, for example, all of that is equal to the beneficiary, which is not in the public eye. So I'll put it this way. So while the property is officially owned by the trustee, you, the beneficiary, retain all the control and decision-making powers. Like, you could fire the trustee at any second. You could manage the property. You could rent it out. You could sell it. Now, why would you want to keep your name off the public record? Well, there's plenty of reasons, right? Privacy is a significant asset in and of itself, especially in today's digital age and litigious society. It can protect you from lawyers, snoops, nosy neighbors, and even prevent potential squatters from targeting your property. That's why this is so important. But does it provide you with asset protection? That's the big question. Well, in some states, yes, like for example, in Florida, a land trust can provide you asset protection very similar to something called an LLC. But in all cases, whenever you have a land trust, it can be woven into your asset protection plan. In fact, a land trust really serves as the first layer of defense, and it adds a veil of anonymity to your investments. It's important to note, however, that land trust does not provide liability protection or tax benefits by itself as a general rule. Now, there's exceptions, such as I just mentioned Florida, but 99% of the time, no liability really comes from a land trust by itself. And I'm going to map this out. Now, there's other reasons there's some benefits that you're using a land trust. For example, where I'm sitting right now here in Clark County, Nevada, if I put a property into an LLC to get asset protection, I'll go over this in a second, but if I put a property into an LLC, not taxable. If I take it back out, it is taxable. It's going to cost me, in some cases, thousands of dollars, most of the time, usually hundreds of dollars, to transfer that property back out. So if I have to refi it, or if I have to take it out for any other reason, I could get hit. Now, that same rule does not affect land trusts. Or let's go back down to Florida. If I transfer property into an LLC and it has a mortgage on it, there's something called doc stamp fees. It could be thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in some cases if I put it directly into an LLC. But if I use a land trust, does not trigger it. Or if I am in a state where they reassess the property taxes, if I put it into an LLC, I can avoid that by putting it in a land trust. And that's why you use a land trust. Or if I have a due on sale clause and I have a property that's in my name and I put it in an LLC, it's far more likely that you're going to have a lender give you problems than if you just put it in a land trust, because everybody's used to grantor trusts in real estate. That's because we use living trusts for legacy planning and for an estate planning tool. And there's millions of them. And lenders are used to seeing people put their houses into trust. When they see an LLC, they start getting nervous because they don't know where you're who you're giving that beneficial interest to, or the membership interest of that LLC to. When you do a trust, I can still provide them with a copy of that trust. They can see I'm still the beneficiary. They look at my tax return, they can still see I'm the end beneficiary. That LLC, for whatever reason, makes them a little nervous, even though and I know it's not that big of a difference. And in most cases, I'm going to show you, I'm going to take that land trust. Remember, we had a little triangle here. And so we have the beneficiary. Let's say that it's John and Sally again. And I have my grantor. Oops. And I have my trustee. Again, let's say that I have a lawyer or an LLC as that trustee. But the liability is all right here. The trustee is not liable if there's a piece of property and there's a fire or there's a liability occurrence. The trustee's not at risk. The trustee's just managing the asset. It's this guy right here, that beneficiary. So what we do is we set up an LLC. And an LLC, unlike a land trust, an LLC is filed with the state. You're paying the state for protection. And what it's going to do, it's limited liability company. So this is a critical comparison that we want to go over. And that is a land trust versus an LLC. So many investors are familiar with the concept of an LLC or limited liability company. An LLC can own property. It could shield you from personal liability and offer tax advantages. However, Quite often with this LLC, I can see who the owners are. So if I go to the state and I look at, let's say we used ABC LLC, I can see John and Sally Smith members, or John and Sally Smith managers, whatever your state, they could have disclosure requirements. If we don't want the state to see that, there are ways to get your name off of it. So this is a huge one. The ownership of an LLC can often be a public record unless you work with groups like us, like what we do here at Anderson. We'll show you how to get your name off. But this is where that land trust really does have the upper hand, because on that property, I'm still showing that trustee. Nobody even has to know that I've taken my beneficial interest and placed it. So all of my money, let's just say the true value, is now sitting in an LLC, and nobody can sit there and take it. If something happens on that property, it stays within this four walls of that LLC. So the liability is isolated the same as if that property was held in that LLC. But now, this is what I like to do. And if we want to keep our name off of a public record, this is how we do it. Like if I want to really take this to another level, this is what I do. Here, let me get a color that you can see. I would set up an LLC, and let's just call it XYZ LLC, and I would set it up in Wyoming. And I would have it be the member of ABC LLC. Now, if I go to the state and I look at ABC LLC, it's going to have XYZ LLC member. That's it. I could be a member managed, or I can make it the manager. Probably I'd just leave it as member. And all I've done is prevent anybody from being able to see John and Sally. So they are completely private. So again, we look at those LLCs, and I'm not saying you have to choose between a land trust and an LLC. What I'm saying is that you use them in conjunction, because both are fabulous tools, but they're very different. So what this structure does is it really maximizes your privacy while providing liability protection and oftentimes the tax benefits of setting up a business. There's other videos on this, but if I have a family office or a management corporation that's working here, there are ways I can get additional tax benefits. If you understand how partnerships work and things like that, and especially if you start getting into multifamily or commercial properties, there's reasons why we want to actually have it end up on a partnership return rather than just you. So we like that LLC for that standpoint. But what this is really about is that we have privacy over here, and we have protection over here with those LLCs, and together they equal a very formidable asset protection plan. So setting up a land trust is actually it's pretty straightforward. You just got to have meticulous attention to detail to ensure it's crafted according to the local laws and serves your investment goals efficiently. It's all about the drafting of that trust agreement. So you really want to talk to somebody who's a real estate investor. So you want to deal with real estate attorneys or professionals who are investors themselves that can guide you through the process. I like to show people how to do it, and it's absolutely free. When you work with Anderson, we'll actually do the blueprint for you and do a strategy session together. Before we do that, I'm going to give you a way to get that for absolutely free. If you found this video useful and you think that there's people that would actually benefit from it, then I ask you to do two things. Number one is give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps our algorithm. There we go. It helps the algorithm out. But also, if you know of anybody that would benefit from this, please share it. It really does help us to get some stretch out there and to get good information into investors' hands so that they can be better investors. We need more. We need more individual investors. We don't need more Wall Street investors. We love Wall Street and everything, but realistically, we're underbuilt in this country and we need better landlords. That means for investors, that's folks like you and me, we need to be out there participating in this market too. So if you'll give us a thumbs up and subscribe, that'd be great. If you have questions or concerns, put them in the comments. I do answer. Now, here's where it's free. If you would like a free strategy session to decide if a land trust makes sense for you, and you'd like to see what a blueprint would look like for you, then all you have to do is go into the comment section and write strategy. So write strategy in the comment section, and we'll send you a link where you can schedule a free consult. No cost, no obligation. We'll do the risk assessment for your portfolio, whatever you're trying to do, and we'll give you a blueprint, absolutely free. So if you'd like to schedule that free session, just go down there and write strategy. If you'd like to learn more about land trusts and LLCs, what they are, all the different components of it, then I would encourage you to attend our tax and asset protection events. We do them on almost a weekly basis. Again, absolutely free. Just look for the link in the description of the video. You'll probably see it. It's called TAP, or Tax and Asset Protection. We've been teaching them for 25 years, working with real estate investors just like you, and regular folks who want to be real estate investors just like you, where you can go in and learn about land trusts, LLCs, corporations, even how to create a legacy plan, and as a bonus, a whole bunch of the tax deductions, cost segregations, 1031 exchanges, how short-term rentals differ than long-term, aggregation elections, grouping of real estate, all those fun things that give you so much benefit we cover during that tax and asset protection event. So please sign up for that as well. And you can be way on your way to making a very effective tax and asset protection plan that benefits you and keeps you away from all those lawyers, snoops, and to a certain extent, even Uncle Sam. So if you spend some time on my channel, please do like and subscribe, and good luck in your investing.